Hey, deserving listeners, let's continue covering this story. I'm going to review more of the data from Teresa Johnson, otherwise known as Risa Tisa. My name is Dr. Kirkhana. I'm a therapist and professor. Let's see what we can learn in addition to what we've already learned.
Genuinely surprised to discover nobody gave a shit about this man.
So I've been watching a lot of this video. It's 7.5 hours long. It's a compilation of all of her videos. And I've been watching bits and pieces, fast forwarding a little bit. There's a lot more detail to this than what I was reading in the summary. But it's just more details to the overall story that I was following.
I had never met every single family member, but the fact that he was living in his car, the fact that he wasn't bathing and was just had disappeared was shocking to me. So, where was he for those 2 weeks? Glad you asked. He had checked himself into a behavioral hospital in Augusta. Why? Not to get help. No. This is July in Georgia. It's hot as hell. It's sweaty. It's damp. It's humid. It's everything. He checked himself into a hospital so he could stop sleeping in his car for 2 weeks. When he checked himself in, they took his phone, and that's why no one was able to get a hold of him. And by no one, I mean me.
Okay, so another detail that I want to highlight, it's just one of the other details that I've been hearing from her, and another data point of psychopathy. We don't know. It's her account. Maybe there's another side of the story. Maybe it never even happened. But if we're using this as a jumping off point, it's just another example of just the pathological, unrelenting drive to lie and exploit and manipulate without thinking in advance, without making plans. You know, other people might think, maybe I should get a job, or I should be nice to people so that I could crash on their couch. But he is in a place where that is not true. He's burned all the bridges. He has no money. It's in Georgia. It's in the summer. He's very hot and sweaty. So he lies to the hospital and claims that he has an issue and manages to trick them into housing him, which is very expensive. The amount of tax dollars that was spent so that he could get out of the heat. Now, maybe he was legit going through an episode. We don't know. But given everything we're hearing, it's quite possible that he wasn't and he was just lying.
I was driving a fleet car. So I wasn't even in my normal car. And I know that he was waiting to see my car, the Nissan Altima that he helped get, pull in to the subdivision and then pull in towards my townhome. That didn't happen. Because I'm in a different car, he didn't recognize it. So when I turned onto my street, as sure as it is hot in Georgia in the summer, that man was sitting in the driveway in his Ford Taurus. Okay?
There are so many details to the story. I understand why people watched it. It's like a thriller movie. It's like an interesting novel. I mean, the fact that she's telling a story is like, well, she lives through it, right? But the details are astonishing, and all of the choices that she makes once she decides that she's going to protect herself and draw limits with him, she is very smart and very calm, and she's making a lot of really good choices. She starts to involve the police. They push back and say, look, he's your husband, so we can't really do anything about it. But she persists, and eventually they look him up and they say, oh my God, he has a warrant, and they wouldn't have done that if she didn't persist. And then they say, that changes everything, because before they were like, we can't do anything, we can't help legally, there's nothing we can do. He's your husband, so he can, because what Legion is trying to do, he's trying to get back into her house. He wants to live there. And it's a whole saga. There's a lot of details, and it's fascinating. But now she's coming home. She's in a work car, a company car that he doesn't recognize. He's there waiting for her. Pretty scary. I haven't heard any overt threats, but of course you would worry about that. And it is a dangerous situation. It is a threat. Just even if there isn't any overt verbal threat, right? Definitely something, if she were a friend of mine, I would say do not confront him. Consider him potentially someone who is going to kill you. It's not likely, but of the situations where this happens, this is how the story begins. So assume that is a possibility, even if those threats aren't there, even if he's crying and begging, like just assume that that's a possibility to stay on the safe side. So she is coming home. He's there. Yeah, it's just terrifying. I know she's alive now, so everything's fine. Yeah, wow. Yikes. And this brings up another element of psychopathy that I probably haven't highlighted yet, which is that for many psychopaths, they won't just stop at exploiting you through lies and deception, but they also don't have a problem with exploiting you through intimidation. They don't care about your feelings, and they don't care about they don't even really care about their own skin, meaning that they don't care if they get in trouble with the police because they don't think that far in advance. And so if all they have to do is scare the shit out of you to get you to comply or give them something, they don't care what that'll cause down the line. Now, for many people, whether they're psychopathic or not, the way our system is and the way society is, sometimes it's easy for them to get away with it. And as a victim, for some victims, it's logical for them to give in, at least in the moment, so they can stay safe. And then this pattern begins, of manipulation. So I don't know if that's what he's up to, but it very well could be.
I was like, oh my God. I hadn't seen him since the end of June when I met him at the UPS store. And he looked bad then. He was still in the same clothes. When I told you guys when I met him, he was like a size 3X. What got out of the car was easily a medium or large. Easily. That is how, and it makes sense because, he probably wasn't eating, except for somebody gave him $6 for chicken nuggets. But
I don't know why that would be happening. I don't even know if it did happen. It's just her account. But if I'm using it as a jumping off point, I would guess that he reached the end of the line regarding being able to manipulate people. The lies had caught up to him. The bridges were all burned. He tried to find someone else that he can manipulate, and it just wasn't working. He tried to call old friends or family members. That wasn't working. And things just spun out of control, and he was sleeping in his car and didn't have any cash and couldn't eat, and he was losing weight. That does happen. And it's another data point, if I've been annoying in these videos, it's that I want to stress that the vast majority of people who suffer from psychopathy are living the life of a train wreck. Their lives are not functional. They are not even serving themselves. They're shooting themselves in their own feet constantly. There might be moments where they're getting a lot of manipulation and parasiting off of other people, but typically, eventually, something will go wrong. Even if they've convinced everyone of their lies, they'll commit some minor crime and get caught, and the lies will catch up to them. They'll get thrown in jail. It's that sort of thing. So we're hearing that he's lost all this weight, and what she guesses is that he just doesn't have any money to buy any food. It's sad. People with psychopathy they're sad. You just look at their lives. You just think, look what you've done to yourself. And there's the way of looking at this, which is that their trauma and their abuse led to them developing defenses and maybe even neurological pathways or neurological functions that result in their impulse problems and their lack of empathy and their disconnection with the human race, the rest of people, that shoots themselves in the foot. And we can have at least some compassion for that. It's hard to have compassion for these folks because when you get close to them, they treat you like utter garbage. They just they never cared. It's bizarre. It's one thing to be around someone that hurts your feelings a lot and they will seemingly not really care. A lot of people will call that lack of empathy, or what people call a narcissist or a sociopath. And maybe they're on the spectrum, but when you actually interact with some of these folks, it's something else. It's really something else that someone would, whether things are going well or things are going poorly in your relationship, you're just an object. They do not care. It feels very weird. It can feel very scary. Even if they're not mistreating you, it can feel very dangerous because there's something missing in the interactions. You know, you're even if they're being very charming, often I will feel this underlying terror that's happening. Sometimes I'll even use that as a barometer for something, right? I don't assume that my feeling is saying something, but I'll say, oh, there's something, and it'll make me pay more attention to what's happening. So we're hearing that his life had really, and he probably had gotten to that point many times. He might have been in that place just before he met her. I wouldn't be surprised. And if his life continues, I wouldn't be surprised if it continues to get worse. And you can imagine someone getting desperate, turning to violence, turning to violent crime. Also, suicide is common enough for people like this.
When he got arrested in my driveway, all of his clothes were still in the car. And when the car got repossessed Saturday morning, all of the clothes were in there. Which means that when he went to jail, whenever he got out, he only got out with keys to a car he no longer had, a wallet with probably no money in it, and the clothes that were on his back. Everything else was gone.
Yeah, just more of what I was saying earlier of how even lower he ended up in prison, released. She said jail, so I don't know how long, in custody for some period of time, and then upon release, nothing, just what he's wearing, and no one to turn to. Yeah. If you didn't think his life could get worse, it did. And, I guess what comes around goes around, right? It probably doesn't even make up for all the damage that he's done. You reap what you sow.
2021 was the worst year I ever had. I'm not saying that so that 2024 can be like, hold my beer. But 2021 was a dark year. Started out married, end of the year divorce, end of the year with COVID and divorce. And that period of time, that August, September time, I felt like I was just walking around like a numb woman.
Yeah, that's something I haven't emphasized yet, and she hasn't emphasized yet, is the trauma of it, literal trauma. To have someone that you love, that you married, that you fell in love with, that you handed everything over to, that you trusted completely, that you trusted with your body, right? To know that actually what was happening that whole time was that person not only didn't love you, which would be traumatic in and of itself, but was trying to exploit me, was out to get me, didn't care at all about me. Not in the way that people usually think of an ex, like, he never cared about me. No. This person isn't capable of caring about feelings. He never cared about my feelings. He was trying to get me from the very beginning. Who am I? What did I do? How stupid am I, right? The shame and the judgment. Society doesn't help. And can I trust anybody? How would I possibly be able to know in the future if this wasn't happening again? Now, with education and therapy, there can be a very good chance of being able to detect, not that it's likely that she'll come across another person like this, but it's not inevitable that if she did come across another person like this, that she wouldn't be able to detect that person. If anything, with enough education and awareness and help and support, she probably would be very good at detecting it. So it's not necessarily true that it's like, I'm broken, I'm stupid, or I'm gullible, or whatever. Or another conclusion that people come to is, I deserved it. I must have asked for it. I don't deserve someone to love me. Look how the world is, because that's what we do. We're not, we're creatures that learn from our experiences. And when our experiences are teaching us that we don't get things, that people don't love us, that people might exploit us, that we don't matter in their eyes, the lesson we learn is, I must not matter. I must not be a good person. I must not be worthy of love. And other people are not capable of loving, particularly me. It's a normal generalization that people will make. Almost everyone does make it, particularly when we're children, but also when we're adults. And particularly as adults, if we had that lesson growing up, we're particularly prone to learning that lesson again growing up, even though it's not logically true, right? Even though it's not empirically true. Of course she deserves love, and of course it wasn't her fault. This was a 1 in a million encounter, really. It's very rare. I don't know if it's a million, but it's extremely rare that this will happen. The chance that you run across a psychopath is very rare. The chance that that person and you will, start dating each other, the chance that they aren't already targeting someone, the chance that they'll see something in you that they want to victimize. There's a lot of things that have to line up for you to end up being in what happened to her. It's not common. So it's not rational to believe that this would ever happen again. In terms of probability, if we go with like the gambler's fallacy, she's due for a very good person to date next time. That's not really how probability works, but you know what I'm saying. So, but it's normal that she would have that, and just the trauma of going through it. I think what she experienced, she isn't being specific about this, but actually, before she saw the light, she was already suspecting something was wrong. She didn't feel right. It would be normal to have that kind of ongoing anxiety or tension or something, like what's happening. And then, so that's ongoing, constant, right? And then once she realizes, then she's, oh my God. And then what do I do? What do I do? What do I do? Oh my God, I'm learning, I'm stupid. What's happening? Da, da, da. And then the tension and the dealing with him and the worry of like, who is this person? What are they capable of? They could ruin me. They could kill me. They could lie about me. Who knows what they could get me fired? What if they make a post on social media? That could be another reason why she did it. It's like, I'm going to get ahead of this because I don't want him to use this against me or something. I'll get my story out first, And then that amount of tension, and then the build up to the divorce, and then he is playing all these games. He's trying to intimidate. I think at the very least he's trying to plead with her to have her take care of him. She's calling the police. The police aren't being very helpful because we live in a system where someone can stalk you, in a situation where literally everyone on the planet would say, okay, technically it's not against the law that he wants to move into their place. But come on, let's take a second and think about how this, what's actually happening here. And we don't want the law to be malleable like that, but let's create a law, some sort of threshold. Like you need 3 psychologists to sign off that this individual is a psychopath or something. I don't know. Or intimidation and stalking has been determined by a jury. That's definitely crossing the line of stalking. Now we can actually say, there's protection orders and stuff like that, but they're pretty weak. If you've ever been through that, they're pretty weak. By the time the person has showed up at your house and they're killing you, and you're like, hey, someone is violating their protection. You know what I mean? So they don't post a police officer outside your house. You're on your own, and a lot of times, which sucks. It's horrible. And a lot of women, a lot of people, but more often it's women that are being harmed in this way. And it's just another example of the disregard for victims and women in general. Anyway, blaming of victims. Well, you never should have dated him. Like, eh. Anyway, so for her, she's going through all that tension. She finally gets over the hill and is, starts to be able to relax, which is kind of where she's at in the story right now. And that feeling of like, where have I been? What happened? And you finally take inventory of everything that happened, and you're still not out of the woods yet because God knows what he's going to do. She just got done talking about how she doesn't know when he's going to be released. She's begging the system, tell me when he's going to be released so I can know if he might come after me, and that she's getting all this pushback. And it's a screwed system. She's handling it very well. She is seemingly, from her description, keeping her cool as she deals with the system. I would be losing it. I mean, I lose it with like the cable company over the smallest of things. I can't stand that kind of bureaucratic bullshit. It's like you're doing this on purpose, and I can't imagine going through what she went through. And the isolating nature of it, she did have some people that she trusted, and the demoralization of like, it was already hard. I was already kind of demoralized about dating and my place in it. And I thought my turn had finally come up. I let myself believe that I deserved it and that I could be loved. And wow, was I stupid. Just how soul-crushing that would be for somebody. So imagine actually doing all these videos and getting all this support from millions of people and validation, I hope was therapeutic and curative for her.
My girlfriend don't believe it. Her family don't. They know better. She know better. My friends that are close to me that know me, they know better. People I work with, they all know.
Okay, so I thought I would watch the interview with Legion himself, and I don't know if any of this is, I don't even know if that's him. I'm just watching YouTube videos, but seems like it's him. Okay, so I just want to chime in here and tell you that this is the end of the free portion of this video. If you want to see the full video, become a member of this YouTube channel by clicking the join button below. And everyone out there, please take care of yourself because you deserve it. You really, really do.